Castlevania? Hell yeah! What other game do you get to play a descendant of a long line of vampire hunters and fight some of horror's greatest monsters as end bosses until you face the final boss himself, Count Dracula?
Now, this review is going to be a very different take on Castlevania as I have no nostalgic connection to this game, and it was only with the Virtual Console release of Castlevania X, aka Rondo of Blood, that I got my first taste of Castlevania, and since then I just can't get enough of this series. So for part 1 of my 2012 Halloween special, I will review the very first game in the Castlevania series.
As I said, this will be a very different take on Castlevania, as I'm reviewing this game from a fresh perspective, and seeing this game for what it is, and not what I remember it being all them years ago. Castlevania is a strange game with very unusual choices made in its game design. Its stiff controls restrict movement and force you to be smart and remember everything from level layouts, hidden items, and even enemy patterns.
Enemies usually move much faster than you, and the only way you'll have a chance against them is to learn their patterns. It can be frustrating when you get your timing wrong and you end up taking a few hits, but the enemy pattern never changes, so there is nothing random about them. But when you're firing on all cylinders and killing all sorts of evil without even blinking an eyelid, it is the greatest feeling in the world.
This is not a game where you can rely solely on reaction speed, and in a way that's a good thing as it levels the playing field with all gamers of various capabilities. And if you know what to do and when to do it, you have as much chance of completing this game as the next gamer. I've held stiff controls against some games in the past, as I've always believed whatever game throws at you, you should be given a fair chance, and for that you need complete control over your character. With this game, however, the controls are very stiff, but for whatever reason, they never felt like a design mistake. Why? I think it comes down to level design. Not only are levels interesting, but by NES standards, look gorgeous. They also pose a challenge that's tough, but like I said, if you know them inside and out, you can easily get through them. But it will take a lot, and I mean a lot of practice. Oh, did I forget, each level gets harder as you get closer to Mr. D.
As hard as these levels are, you're given plenty of power-ups to help you, which consume the hearts you collect throughout these levels. But isn't it strange? I mean, normally hearts are for health, not to power your weapons.
A great strategy is to try to keep hold of the special weapon you need to get through some parts of the level more easily and to give you an edge with the end boss. Shot multipliers make all special weapons more powerful, and your special weapon combined with a shot multiplier will allow you to take out the end bosses very quickly, but they do not work with a stopwatch. You can also collect power-ups for your whip that make it more powerful by turning it into a chain whip and later extend its reach, which will come in handy, but if you die you go back to the last checkpoint with only a basic whip and no special weapon. Granted, back from the dead, you soon get to fully power up your whip again.
As handy as it is having checkpoints, I think it would have been easier to start at the beginning every time, as there's some special weapons you can only get at the beginning of the level, and if you're, let's say for example, facing level 4's big bad, you need holy water, and if you're at level 4's final checkpoint, you can't get a weapon again, and you have to face him with another less effective weapon. This could be seen as a negative, or another layer to the challenge.
And challenge or not, this game has one of the best soundtracks to ever grace the NES. The soundtrack here not only builds tension, but also sets the atmosphere and really gives you the feeling you're in a creepy mansion fighting all sorts of evil. It's fantastic.
The history to this game is fascinating, but it's just too much to go over, so I'm going to focus on one specific aspect of it, namely 3 very interesting ports of the very first game. But did you know before this series settled the name Castlevania, it was also called Vampire Killer?
In 1986, Vampire Killer was first released on the Nintendo Famicom Disk System, and shortly after for the MSX computer. Both these releases are very different, so let's get into the changes. The Famicom Disk System version is basically the same as the Western release of Castlevania, but with a few key changes. It included an easy mode and the ability to save your game. The MSX release didn't look as good as the Famicom Disk version, but the raw gameplay was there with an additional feature, Skull Keys. To progress through the levels, you find skull keys to open doors and chests that give you special items which now include a shield.
A year later, this game was released in the West, where it became a critical and commercial success that spawned a huge series with 40 plus titles in it. But also, did you know that a year later this game was given the arcade treatment?
Enter Haunted Castle. This game isn't very well remembered, and with good reasons. First, the story is completely changed, and now starts with Simon Belmont having his wife kidnapped on his wedding day of all days. So his quest to save his wife and vanquish Mr. D begins. Graphically, this looks awesome for the time, but that's the only good thing I have to say about it. The playable character is too big, and that makes avoiding enemy hits difficult, and on top of that, no matter how many credits you put in, you get no more than 3 continues. And I think that's a single reason why this game was quickly forgotten. There are also 3 computer ports for DOS, the Amiga, and the C64. A good friend of mine has already done a great video talking about them and their differences, so I suggest you check out the Game Beast Castlevania port comparison video. So, my final thoughts. If you like a game that rewards determination and memory of level layouts and enemy patterns, then this is the game for you. Completing Castlevania is no easy task, but finishing this game is one of the greatest feelings of satisfaction you could ever get from a video game. If this review has sparked your interest in the Castlevania series, then what better place to start off with than the game that started it all? So I give Castlevania the thumb of approval. I want to say a very special thank you to Cobra Saturn 360 for donating this game and the other 2 games in the Castlevania trilogy, and I will review the other 2 games another time. Stars!
I hear the second part of my Halloween review special coming, so I will see you all again very soon.